Farcus. I'm here at Hawking College with a group of young equine farrier students, and we're talking about the Farrier Friendly Readiness Test, helping them out today. And we have our school horse here to help us to demonstrate a couple things. First thing we want to mention is steering test. For our horse to be ready for the farrier, to be what I call farrier friendly, we have to be able to steer our horse around. And all that really means we want to make sure that when we actually ask our horse to move, we draw a line on the ground like we did a minute ago, and it's kind of already gone. We'll put another line on the ground here. I want to make sure if I want his feet to straddle that line, that I move his hind end first. So, using a stick or a crop, not a whip, stick or a crop, right?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and ask him to step hindquarters first when he's on the line, and then I can move his front end in. So if I can get real particular with it, I might say, you know what, old friend, I want you to straddle that line on the ground. So notice when I want him to go forward, we're using something I call center leading. I'm staying by the shoulder. When I want him to go forward, I use the stick, maybe a tap, if needed. And when I want him to stop or whoa, it's like center leading. It's kind of like basically leading him like you ride him. Right? I look over there, I'm just talking to the camera, but I want to talk to you guys. The reason I like center leading is because it makes sense, because you're going to eventually ride this horse anyway. And he already knows, because he's been ridden. He knows that this rope is a bridle, halter's a bridle. What can I do with this? Do I ever yank on the bridle and say, come on, horse, let's go forward? When you're in the saddle, you don't do that, right? Do people do that when we're on the ground? Unfortunately, you get a lot of people yank, 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 and these horses are like this school horse here. He's good enough, he'll follow you and do it. So, but I want to remember, this is not a rope, this is a bridle. What can I do with the bridle? I can pick up on the bridle and I can bring his nose to me, position him. I can pick up on the bridle and push on it, back him up. Those are things I can do with the bridle. But what if I want him to go forward? Then I need my leg. So this stick is my leg. So when I take this stick, I can use the stick anywhere behind his center. So his withers is the center. If I put pressure, waving or whatever back here, notice that he understands that means go forward, right? So that's all you really need to remember when you're leading your horse, center leading and getting in position for the farrier, is, hey, they need to be steerable. In my opinion, he passes that test. That's why I call it a test, because some horses, when I go to meet them for the very first time, they may not pass that test. I may pick up on the rope to have them back up and they brace against it. Or they start walking forward on me. You're not supposed to do that. He flunks the steering test. Or I go to swing my whip and not even touch him, but he's like, oh my God, and he takes off. Or he starts running backwards, or he clearly is afraid of the stick. Well, then he's not steered. So can we do anything that day as far as shoeing goes? Trimming? No. Got to pass that steering test. That goes on to the second test, the flexibility test. Right? The flexibility test is going to be important because we can back on the line and kind of screen. Notice the line is going to basically be in the middle of this barn aisle. Devin can see me. We're going to say the tail's back there and the head's there, and that's not going to change for today's session, for our work session. But flexibility, why do I need flexibility? I need flexibility because when I go to pick his feet up, he has to be limber and flexible. If he's all stiff and braced, you're not going to be able to, he probably is not going to give you his feet. And we want him to give us his feet, not us take it. There's a big difference between giving and taking. So, one of the things I'll test for is, can he just simply give me his nose? Can I just stand by his side and lightly inch his nose toward me? And I don't care if he moves his body, as long as he doesn't pull against the rope. It's pretty natural for a horse to follow the bend by me. So I'm not too worried that he moved his body. What I don't want to happen is that I pick up on the rope and he starts pulling against it like he's playing tug of war. That means he's not passing the flexibility test. So on this side, think about, I know he'll follow the bend, he'll give me his nose, he'll move back around, I don't even need to stick. So see how one helps the other? If he's flexible, he's steerable. If he's steerable, he's generally flexible. Right? The other part of the flexibility test is, and Devin has worked with you guys on this and your baby horses, is when I put downward pressure on this halter, the pole, I don't need to do all kinds of things like, here's a tree, come and find it, and I don't need to go yank. I mean, you might fiddle with that in the very, very beginning. But ultimately, all I should be able to do is take this halter with a little bit of nudging, hold and release, hold and release, hold and release, hold and release. Good boy. He's flexible. He passes that test very well. I knew he would. That's why he was our demonstrator today. Because somebody did their homework with him. So those are two important things. Why is it so important that I can get him flexible enough to have his head down? Because the lower his head is, the higher his hind feet can get. So I don't know if Devin can get this on camera, but if I'm the horse, you may need to scooch closer, Devin. I bless you can see.
I can see him.
But if I'm the horse, as I lower his head, it's easier for me to get my foot higher. And that's no different for our horse. The lower his head goes, the higher his hind feet can go. Everybody says, you're a tall boy. How can you shoe some of these small horses? I can't if they're not flexible. If we didn't work on flexibility, I'd be stuck with shoeing draft horses, and by God, that's a lot of work. So thank goodness I can work on miniature horses too. Incidentally, the miniature horse is like one of the most flexible breeds. When you lower their head like that, I've had some miniature horses hit their hind leg. Normally, his hind leg will kind of come to about here, you know. I get these miniature horses that somehow get it to where the top of their hoof is like breaking the plane of their haunches. It's amazing how high a miniature horse can get his hind leg, if he's flexible. So that's a flexibility test. The touch test. Touch test is going to be something you all call sacking out, right? I can take a stick or whatever, and I want to make sure I can rub them and touch them and all that stuff, in all areas. I'm using a stick. I'm doing the goosey spots. Guess what? Horse doesn't pass that test. I ain't showing him today. I ain't trimming them today. I'm recommending that people practice these things and or they hire a trainer. Remember, this is all about Farrier Friendly Readiness. But
Which he has left my house before over horses like that.
What's that?
I said, you've left my house before over horses like that.
Well,
you're like, you need definitely to do your homework. I'll come back.
And so I tell Devin, hire your trainer. I am the trainer. I said, okay, girl, get to work.
Yep.
But anyway,
wow.
It's very simple things to do, right?
Hey, some of them are training horses. We don't know how it's going to go.
What's the next thing on this list? Trying to push along here a little bit. You guys are going to be doing this today. That's this.
Yep, which we've done that before too.
That test is like my sound check. Because here's the thing you guys need to remember. It's just because a horse lets you rub and touch, it doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily be okay with the sound of things. So what's the sounds of things going to be? The sounds of things are going to be like nippers, clipping of nippers, and the metal, if you're trying to shoe, the ting-ting of the hammer,
yep.
And clinchers and the metal sounds and scraping sounds. Some horses, that's a deal breaker. I've had horses stand perfect like he is. And then I come down to do the tap test, readiness test, and I go down and I just start doing this, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, they like almost go through the roof. Now he's obviously moving because he's like, you know what? You might not enjoy this, but he's not panicked about it. He's not, in my opinion, he's not flunking the test. So I just want to make sure.
Oh, Rennie.
And notice he's moving around a little bit. I want to go forward. Notice the answer to whenever he gets into trouble is to go forward, moving back into his spot. You know, he's kind of like super sensitive.
Yeah.
So to me, he's still passing his test. I've had some horses like literally hit the panic button, start kicking out, whatever, they don't pass the test.
Yeah.
He was shoed yesterday.
Yeah, and obviously he's had some shoes on him, but I mean that's the whole idea of what? And you got to watch too. If a couple of times I may have accidentally hit his coronary band, he's going to move if you bump that. I'm just talking about hitting the hoof capsule itself. But you know, the other thing to help some of these horses too is just as you can get them to lower their head a little bit, that helps. But he's doing a fairly good job. But you know what? If you wanted him to be really, really even better than what he just did, you can practice that. You can practice it to the point where he's like, oh, this is no big deal. Here's the thing I tell people. Practice something that you want to do to your horse until it's so boring. Then the horse looks at you and goes, you know what? This is so boring. And then guess what? Bingo, you have arrived. If it is so boring that you think it's boring and your horse looks at you and the horse is like, this is so boring, then you know you've arrived. So, okay, so that's the tap test. So the very last test should be what? The three-legged. That's where I need a volunteer. Who wants to be my horse handler?
Carter. Or Chris. Yeah. Chris is already on her way. No one was moving.
I was.
Okay, so
Slowly.
three-legged balance. It's really not about picking up the horse's feet, right? It's about being able to position the horse so that a foot is light. So here's a simple thing, and you're Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris, all I'm going to have you do is, let's say I want to pick up front foot. All I want you to do is either step the horse forward or back, you've got choices, to where the left front foot is clearly lighter than the others. So there's really no wrong answer here either. So you're going to keep fiddling forward and back till that foot looks lighter than the others. Now, when I'm think about it, it might be hard to see on the camera, but when you're standing here too, think about how the horse leans. Would it be easier? Obviously. See how? Oh, there we are. Freeze. Can you get the camera on him? See how he's standing? Obviously, the foot that's firm on the ground is heavy, and the one that's tipped on the toes of the ground is lighter. And look at her. See how she's standing? You can tell, right? So one of the things you need to do is for the horse, you need to be able to look at the horse and say to yourself, how's he leaning, right? And here's the easy way to do it. The very easy way to do it is just start out by saying, the further ahead in the front I can get the front foot that I want. So the further ahead in his body that I can get his left front foot, the lighter it's going to be. So if he's standing real close with it only an inch ahead, it's not as light as if you're standing with that left front foot like way. So it's getting lighter, right? Can you see that now?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
There.
There you go. There you go.
There.
That's light. Isn't that light? That's all you needed. That's simple. That's an example of lightness for a front foot. How about lightness for a back foot? So take that philosophy. So in the front end, the further ahead in the front his foot is, the lighter it is. What do you think about the hind end? Further, you guys got it. Somebody said it. The further behind the horse's body, the lighter it's going to be. So it's going to be kind of this deal. When that hind foot trails behind the horse to the point where they're sleeping, sometimes you notice they're standing like this. They're sleeping. And they're literally just, can you get that on cue? Can you position a horse for that? Light-footed positioning so he stands like that? Absolutely, and I encourage that to be an exercise that you do with your young horses. Teach them or move them into that position to where the foot that you think you want to pick up, in this case, we'll say, because for the camera's benefit, we'll say We're going to move him until this foot. Now, you'll notice this foot's already behind his body, but he's got young little technicality. He's still not light. So you have to kind of still work on fudging and moving him around. If you can get him on the tip of his toe, that'd be great. But the further you get him standing behind himself with this foot, the lighter it's going to be. And the first time that you think that he's light, when he gets light, the best thing to do then would be to lower his head a little bit. That also helps. There he is.
I'll lower his head.
He's starting to rock off this foot a little bit. As she lowered his head, this foot got lighter. And you probably can't see it, but there's a little bit of daylight between your foot there and the ground. But if you don't think that's good enough, keep working it. Keep working it because it's an exercise that you can do. Is it a boring exercise? Yeah, guess what? It's so simple for the horse to do. And it's something you wouldn't want to do when the horse is all like raring to go. Work on your other high energy exercises and your turnout exercises and do all that. These exercises are what I call cool down exercises. You don't want a horse that's all hopped up and ready to go because that's part of the prerequisites, right? They need to be like being out and ready to chill. When your horse is ready to chill, then you can work on this for hours. When I'm grooming my horses at the house, I've got 2 horses at the house and I drive my wife crazy. What are you doing now? You're just supposed to dress the horse. I said, I know, but I just don't want to knock the mud off the horse. I want this to be a positive, like, I want us to get little pennies in the bank here because I don't see my horses enough. My one mare at the house, I hardly ever see her enough. Like the plumber's linky sink. But when I do, I like to be quality time. So I'm thinking, when I'm standing here scratching or scraping the mud off, I've also got the rope on her. I also have a stick German style like Chris has. And I'm playing around. And then I'm thinking, you know what? While I'm doing this, I'm going to get this hind foot light. So I'm playing around. Good boy. Right there. Good job. See how, I don't know if you caught that on camera, but see how he kind of dwelled, that foot kind of like lingered in the air for a split second? Good boy. And then what I do is when he gets to where I want him to be, position-wise, move light, as light as I want him to be, then I'll start scratching and rubbing on him again, or I just might scratch and rub for a while and then say, you know what, I'm going to take a few minutes out. There you go. Good boy. See how it's getting lighter now? Good boy. Good for you. So then I would be like, you know, so you can do this while you're brushing stuff or braiding his mane or whatever you're doing. It's one of those multitasking things that are good to do. So, and look what he's doing there now. Now, that was the smart part. Here's the dumb part. Anybody can reach down and pick up a foot. Notice I don't need to teach you to do that, do I? All I needed to teach you is the readiness steps. This 3-legged balance. When he's standing like this, he's 100% 3-legged balance. A good thing to point out, they're not always necessarily square. He's not 100% square here either. See how he's kind of like off a little bit in terms of his. He looks, from a distance, he looks kind of square. But some horses, depending upon their age or whatever, they may have to spread out in front like a diagonal. I have some horses that, in order to feel comfortable, 3-legged balance, they'll literally stand kind of like a triangle or tripod position. They'll stand with one front foot way out like that, and then in order to get the hind foot tilted up in the air like that. But see, I always tell everybody, this, unfortunately, when in my business, I work on the dumb end. They send me in, and I got to work on the dumb end of the horse. The dumb end is this. Anybody can do this. And I'm working. I'm on the dummy end. My horse owner, Chris, that was helping me, she's on the smart end. Because everything happens up here. His nose is connected to his toes. Quite frankly, his nose is connected to anything that I say is, if I practice it and train for it. It's all about connection. His nose is connected to whatever I choose it to be connected to. In this case, as a farrier, probably the best place to end it would be, I always want his nose connected to his toes in order for him to be a light-footed horse that I don't need to stress on. I don't need to yank and pull. If he gets stuck, the answer isn't horse shove, shove. The answer is, Chris, horse owner, will you please step him forward or step him back, get him light-footed again, and then I'll go again, because guess what? That saves my back. How farriers have problems in their career is by yanking and tugging on horses' feet. I don't ever want to feel like, one day I'll end up with this, and then we tape this or not tape, I don't care. I was not giving any names, but I was called one time, Bryan, you gotta be, without a doubt, the laziest farrier that I ever met. And when I was first told that, I thought, man, that must be bad, right? She goes, you are so lazy, Bryan, that you won't even pick up a horse's foot. You expect that horse to adjust it, to get in position, and you expect that horse to give you his foot. And you expect that horse, as you're bending down, that he'll give you his foot. Well, yeah, I do expect my horse to do that. With the least amount of effort. Good boy, I expect you to do that. See, I didn't have any yank or tug. He met me at least halfway. I've worked on horses little tail out of school. When I worked here full time, more often, and I knew him, we'd do a demonstration like this for a group, well, in a shoeing class, a beginner's class. By the end of the session, you'd walk, and he maybe does this for you guys too. Smart horse. And you all have him at home. You walk by him, and as soon as you bend over, it puts up in the air, right? A lot of them like that. Well, I want that out of my horses. That's part of my Farrier Friendly Readiness thing. And so I guess if you're calling me lazy because I want the horse, because my idea is, listen, if they can kick and stomp and flies, and they obviously walk to her, right? Then why can't they pick up their foot from me too? So, do you have any